Alright, hi everyone. This is actually going to be our last lecture of the semester, our last lecture video. So certainly this was not the way I anticipated ending the semester, but I hope that this transition has been as smooth as possible for you guys. Please let me know if you have any questions. I do have several announcements here, so make sure that you are paying attention to this. So this is the lecture video for maintaining and repairing relationships. The slides on Canvas are probably staying together or something like that. Okay, now, announcements. First of all, Activity 12 is going to be due by 5 p.m. on April 17th. However, you do get 2 drop grades for exams. So, if by the time you reach Activity 12, you've already completed, commitment's important too. If you've already completed 10 activities out of 12, then there's no need for you to complete this last one. I'm going to drop your 2 lowest activity grades. You're going to get up to 100 points from activities, 10 points from each of your top 10 activities. However, if you've missed activities, then this could be a chance for you to earn some of those points back. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions about that. Now, as far as exams are concerned, Exam 4 is multiple choice, true, false, and matching. It's going to open at 8 a.m. on April 13th. And it's going to be open until 5 p.m. on April 21st. This is true for both of my sections. So the schedule I have pulled up right this second is for my 9:30 section, but if you look at the schedule for my 2 o'clock section, it's exactly the same, okay, as far as Exam 4 is concerned. So Exam 4 is going to be open from April 13th through 5 p.m. on April 21st, okay? Now, there are 5 exams total, but you get 1 exam drop grade. So for many of you, you will take Exam 4 and be done with the class, okay? I will post grades in the class before the final exam, and if you're happy with that grade, you can keep it and you're done. However, maybe you missed an exam, or maybe one of the exams didn't go very well for you. In that case, you might want to use your drop grade for one of the other exams and go ahead and take Exam 5. Now, Exam 5 is going to be an essay test. So here's what I've decided to do with it. It was always going to be an essay test. It's just earlier it was going to be an in-class essay exam. Obviously, we can't do that anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up on Canvas. It is going to open at 8 a.m. on April 22nd for both sections. The only difference is when it's due. So if you're in my 2 o'clock section, it's due by 6 p.m. on April 27th because that's the end of the final exam period for my 2 o'clock section. If you are in my 9:30 section, then it's going to be due by 11 a.m. on April 27th. So the only difference is the time, the same date for both, April 27th for both, but the difference is the time because of the unique final exam period for your particular section. Okay, now, as I said, if you're happy with the grade you have going into the final exam, you don't have to take the final exam. I will post your grade going into the final exam. You can make an informed decision, okay? If you would like to take Exam 5, by all means, do so. The only way Exam 5 can hurt you is if you cheat on it. If you do your own work, but it ends up being your lowest grade, it'll just be dropped, and it won't hurt. You'll keep the grade you had before. If you do better on Exam 5 than you did on one of your other exams throughout the semester, it will replace that exam. For example, if your lowest exam throughout the semester was a 70, and you made an 80 on the final exam, that would add 10 points to your points total because you'd have an 80 replacing a 70, okay? Now, if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. So I've set this up where Exam 5, the final exam, is going to open the morning after Exam 4 closes. So I'm going to try to get all of your grades before the final exam in ASAP, okay? Then you can make an informed decision. Now, Exam 5 is going to be an essay exam. It's going to have 5 questions from throughout the semester, but the way it's going to work is that you can open it, work on it, save it, come back to it. So it's not going to be where you have to do it all in one session. There should be a button, I don't know exactly what it will look like in the student view, but there should be a button where you can just save versus save and submit. So don't submit it until you want to send it to me, but you should be able to work on it, save it, come back to it. And there'll be 5 essay questions, each one worth 20 points, okay? Let me know if you have any questions. All you have to do is submit that by the end of your final exam period for your particular class. So for the 9:30 section, that's 11 a.m. For my 2 o'clock section, that's 6 p.m., okay? All right, I think that's all the announcements I was going to make. Let me know if you have any questions about any of that. So we're going to go ahead and get into our last set of slides. And I feel like this last set of slides is going to be a nice summary of some of the things that we've talked about and some encouragement, hopefully, and some concrete advice about how to improve relationships. So first of all, in summary of what we've learned this semester, bad is stronger than good. How much stronger? 5 times stronger. The costs are more powerful than the rewards. 5 times more powerful. So because of that, you need to do at least 5 good things for every bad thing you do just to keep your relationship stable. Conflict is unavoidable. We said that conflict happens when your beliefs, motives, opinions, behaviors, etc. don't line up with those of another person. There's no way to avoid that completely. And some of us are not very experienced in handling conflict. We also talked about how romantic passion declines over time, almost invariably. In every relationship, this is going to happen. And when it comes to attachment styles, 60-ish% of people say they're securely attached, which is self-report, so it may not be completely accurate, but 60% say they're securely attached, which means that a lot of people are insecurely attached, either being avoidant or anxious ambivalent. Now, basically, relationships are hard and messy and complicated, and that's been the theme throughout the class. However, I don't want you to end this class with a very negative view of relationships. That's certainly not my goal. I've told you guys I am pro-relationships, okay? What you should know is that there are lots of ways that relationships can go wrong, but I want you to have a growth belief about relationships, that if you work hard, you can make your relationship work. So the whole theme of today's lecture is going to be how to improve relationships. So there's this cartoon. I'm not having any luck with women. Ever been married? No. Sounds lucky to me. Okay. I think that as a culture, we tend to have a pessimistic view of marriage at least, if not relationships in general. That with a 50% divorce rate, we don't have very high hopes. We don't have the tools we need to expect relationships to be successful. But what I'm hoping is that because you've taken this class, you have some tools that would be good for you and helpful for you. Also, many of you are psychology majors. Even if you're not a psychology major, you're taking classes. We know that there's a good relationship between education and successful romantic relationships as well. So I think that you should not be overly pessimistic. I think you should just be aware that relationships are hard and they require work. And that's my goal. I did once have a student take this class and tell me that he was engaged. He got engaged right before the class started. And after the class, he was a little bit scared. And that was not my intention. I'm not trying to scare you off relationships. I just want you to know that there are certain ways of behaving and certain ways of thinking that can help your relationship be more or less successful. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So here's why you don't need to be afraid. People who are committed to their relationships can engage in behaviors that will help that relationship be more successful. Now, when we talk about commitment, remember that this is one of our 3 aspects of love. We said that commitment is your attitude, your belief that you want this relationship to continue. You expect it to continue. So if you are expecting this relationship to continue, there are a variety of behaviors, and we'll talk about a few, but we can't talk about all. A lot of behaviors you can engage in that will help your partner be happier and your relationship be happier. However, we should be aware that we're not perfect, our partners are not perfect, and that problems are going to come up. When that happens, we have to be cautious with the thoughts that we have here. Remember, we talked about destiny beliefs, about how sometimes we have this view that love is supposed to be magical and easy and perfect, and if we're having problems, it means we're with the wrong person. That is not the case. Relationships are hard, and if you're having problems, that doesn't necessarily mean you're with the wrong person. It just means that you're human and your partner's human as well. Okay, certainly it could be that you're with the wrong person, but I think that it could also be that we have unrealistic expectations. So when problems happen, it says if they occur, I'm going to go ahead and say when they occur. Certainly there are things we can do to fix those problems, and if you have trouble and you can't fix it, That's okay. That's what therapy is there for. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about a couple of different approaches to marital therapy at the end of this set of slides. Okay, so I want to have you in a positive state of mind as we finish up the class, okay? There's a reason why I ordered the class the way that I did. The serial position effect says that you remember the things at the beginning and the end, and you lose some of the things in the middle. I'm hoping you remember the end of this class and some positive, helpful things there. Okay, so if you're committed to a relationship, you're going to think and behave differently, and that's going to help protect your relationship. Now, if we were in class, we would have a discussion here, and I always enjoy getting students' thoughts about should we separate these two things out. Your slides from here on out are going to separate cognitive mechanisms, like thought processes, versus behavioral mechanisms. Is that an artificial distinction? What I'm asking is a thought a behavior? Sometimes people are on one side or the other. I don't have the right answer for this. But you might say, one argument is, a behavior is something I can control. And maybe you don't feel like you can completely control your thoughts. Certainly as a person who has OCD, I don't feel like I can completely control my thoughts. You might say, well, behavior is something you control. But have you ever engaged in a behavior and felt like it was out of your control? You were so upset, you were so whatever, that you felt like you couldn't control your behavior. So then what is the difference between a thought and a behavior? Is a thought just a covert behavior? Two different camps here, two different ways of thinking, but one thing to consider here is I'm telling you to think a certain way and behave a certain way to help your relationship be successful. Can therapy change your behavior? Yes, absolutely. We can see that. Doesn't always. You got to put in the effort. You got to put in the work. But yes, it can. Can therapy change your way of thinking? Some students would say they think that thoughts and behaviors are different because you can't make a person think a certain way, but maybe you can make a person behave a certain way. But we have cognitive therapy that is aimed at changing the way people think. So, you know, I don't know. I don't have the answers. Just something to consider as we go through and think about these. So first of all, cognitive maintenance mechanisms. So at the very least, we're talking about covert behaviors here. And when I say a covert behavior, I mean one that you can't see happening. It's happening inside someone's head. You don't know what they're thinking. But you could still potentially view that as a behavior. Okay. Cognitive maintenance mechanisms. Ways of thinking that are helpful for satisfaction in relationships. First of all, cognitive interdependence. Okay, so the cognitive bit means that it's part of your internal thought process. Interdependence means that you feel like yourself and your partner have a lot of overlap. Okay, so what we're saying here is that you think of yourselves as a couple. Not so much this is me over here doing my thing and my partner's over here doing his or her thing, but we are one. Now, you sometimes hear people, the thing that came to my mind when I said that is celebrity couples where we like put their names together. But the only one that comes to mind is Brangelina. And that's not really accurate anymore, right? They're not Brangelina anymore. But the idea is that you think of yourselves as being a unit instead of being separate individuals. So you might start saying things like, we like to watch baseball. I say that because my husband and I like to watch baseball. Not that baseball is happening right now, but you know what I mean. That's our favorite time of the year is the fall, right? Okay. So we're thinking in terms of the couple, not thinking about individual terms, which could be obnoxious to other people outside of the relationship, to always hear a person bringing their partner into everything. However, it can be helpful for a relationship. If you're thinking about yourself and your partner as one, you're more likely to be making decisions that are good for both yourself and your partner. And if you're thinking about yourself and your partner as one, then it probably seems strange to you, the idea of breaking up, divorcing, splitting up, whatever. So you feel like you are so committed to each other that it's hard for you to imagine looking for another partner, which could be protective, right? Another thing that could be potentially annoying to other people outside of the relationship, but can be good for the couple, positive illusions. When you hear the word illusion, you probably think a trick, something that's not really there, but you think is there. So what's happening with positive illusions, and we've talked about this a little throughout the semester, is that partners who are very committed to each other tend to focus on the good things about their relationship and about their partner. And they will either A, ignore, or B, downplay, or even C, view them as positive, the negative things about your partner. So you say, okay, well, my partner is always late. Well, either you say, well, everybody's always late. It's not a big deal. No, my partner's not late. Or isn't that so cute? They're so busy thinking about other things. They're just a really important person. So all the things that are negative, you play down or even make them seem like positive things. But the things that are good, you build up and you focus on and you post on social media, right? Now, what's happening here? Especially in a committed relationship, which is what we're talking about today. If you're married to this person, for example, you have put a lot of time and energy and effort into this relationship and commitment. You want to feel like you chose the right person. So part of this is making yourself feel good. I'm a good judge of character. I married the right person. Yay me. Okay. But also part of this is that you want to be happy and you want your partner to be happy. You care about your partner. This is not necessarily a bad thing. You want your partner to do this with you. You want your partner to focus on the good things about you and downplay the negative things. However, of course, this can be a problem. We can take anything that's good and make it bad, okay? So what could happen here is that there could be a really serious behavior, a behavior that is trending towards abuse or neglect, infidelity, other serious behaviors, and say, well, that's not that big of a deal. Everybody does that. And we could actually make things harder for ourselves in the relationship in the long run. So I'm certainly not suggesting you should do this for every behavior, but it could be helpful for some of the smaller things, right? Okay. Other ways of thinking that can be helpful to relationships. Perceived superiority. Once again, this goes back to the cognitive dissonance I was talking about a second ago. The cognitive dissonance happens when you feel uncomfortable because you know there's a chance you're wrong, okay? When you marry someone, you're saying yes to that person and no to everyone else. You want to believe that you made the right decision. So you want to focus on the good things about your partner and the bad things about everybody else so that you can feel like you made the right decision. Part of that is feeling like your relationship is better than other people's relationships. This, once again, could be a good thing. Okay? If you feel like your relationship is better than other relationships, you won't feel the need to go looking for another relationship. You'll be happy, satisfied where you are. Of course, this could become a bad thing. Okay? If you feel like your relationship is better than everybody else's, you might not listen to sound advice from other people. You might not be willing to seek out couples counseling, that kind of thing. If you believe this and then your relationship comes to a sudden end, you might feel like there's no coming back from this because no relationship will ever be as good as the one I was in. So, of course, once again, something that could be good could also be bad, depending on the situation. But a little bit of perceived superiority is not necessarily a bad thing. Going along with that, inattention to alternatives. If you're in a committed relationship and you think your relationship is better than everybody else's and you think your partner is better than all other options, then there's no reason for you to pay attention to other people. And this is the case. What they do is they'll bring in people. Some of them will be in committed relationships. Some of them will be in uncommitted relationships or single. And they'll show them pictures of people. And they'll ask, how attractive is this person? Just like a picture of the face of a person. What they'll find is that people who are single or are in relationships that are not committed will rate those pictures as being more attractive. Okay? They are paying attention to alternatives. And this is going to go along to what we're going to be talking about in a second, which is with the other couples, with the committed couples. They'll actually be derogatory towards other people. They'll tear them down. So first of all, if you're in a committed relationship, you're probably not even paying attention to other people. You're not even paying attention. Maybe somebody's been flirting with you and you're not even aware of it because it's not on your radar. But what if somebody does get onto your radar? For example, what if in that research study they show you a picture and they say, hey, how attractive is this person? What they find is that the committed individuals will say that the pictures, the people, are less attractive. Why? Is it really that when you get into a committed relationship, your vision changes? Your standards of what is attractive and what is not attractive change? No. Several things going on here. One thing is maybe you feel guilty finding another person attractive, and maybe that's why you rate them as being less attractive. Maybe you're afraid that your partner's going to find out what you said in the research study, and maybe that's why you do it. But also, you want to feel like you made the right choice, right? I want to feel like I married the right person, or I'm living with the right person, or whatever. So you'll say, that person's okay, but they're not as attractive as my person, right? Now, this then leads me to a conversation that I usually bring up at this point in class. If we were in class, I'd ask you guys this question. And feel free, if you have thoughts, email them to me. Put them in the activity, whatever you want to do. What I ask here is, what about talking amongst yourselves about how attractive a celebrity is? For example, if you and your partner are watching a movie and there is a person on the screen, and you're like, oh wow, that person is really, insert whatever word the kids use these days, hot, attractive, whatever. Okay. Do you think that's a good thing, an appropriate thing to have that conversation? So sometimes students will say, yeah, I can talk to my partner can talk to me about how attractive celebrities are, because there's very little chance that they'll ever meet that person, much less have a chance to be in a relationship with that person. And they might say, well, it would be different if it was my coworker or my friend or my sibling or whatever the case may be. Okay. But then I think there's an argument to be made that you could also have that conversation be hurtful and could cause some problems. So I'm going to say that you and your partner should figure this out, and you should always err on the side of being cautious and respectful. That's what I'm going to throw out there. Okay, so if you are committed, you will think about other people and think about your relationship differently. You will find other people less attractive, or you won't even notice them at all. You will feel like your partner is the best. Your relationship is the best. You and your partner are one. And what we find is that couples that think that way tend to be happier. And yes, we'll talk about cognitive therapy towards the end of the set of slides. But yes, we do have therapies that are aimed at trying to change the way people think. We can't completely change that, just like we can't completely change someone's overt behaviors, the things you can see them doing. But we can certainly suggest ways of increasing certain thoughts, decreasing other thoughts. All right, now shifting gears to behavioral mechanisms. Once again, a thought could be considered a covert behavior or a cognitive behavior. But here we're talking about behaviors where you can actually see a person doing this, overt behaviors. First of all, willing to sacrifice. What you will find is that any type of relationship, whether this be a friendship, roommates, co-workers, family, or romantic relationship, you will probably have to sacrifice some things. So specifically in a romantic relationship, you're going to have to sacrifice time. You're going to have to sacrifice money. You may have to sacrifice comfort. Figuring out what you're going to set your thermostat on, okay? That kind of thing. You are not able to completely control things the way you normally do, perhaps. And so because of that, you're going to have to sacrifice. Now, why would you sacrifice for a relationship you're not committed to? If you don't anticipate this relationship continuing, then it's probably not a big deal to you if it goes ahead and ends now. And so I'm probably going to not try to please my partner as much. I'm not going to be as willing to sacrifice. Now, the thing about sacrifice here is that it is assumed that if you're making sacrifices for your partner is also making sacrifices for you. If not, that can feel like the inequitable relationships that we talked about last time. The idea that one partner is putting in more effort than the other partner. And so we talked about ways to try to fix that last time. An interesting one here is prayer. In the past, we've had panel discussions for this class. And we had a sexuality panel and a religion panel as well. I just didn't have, I just wasn't able to do the panels this semester with the number of students being so large. But this could be something that could potentially come up in the religion panel. One thing that research finds is that couples who report praying for the well-being of their partners are more satisfied with sacrifices and more forgiving and more generally satisfied with and committed to their relationships. Okay, a few things to think about here. One thing is, this is a correlation. There's a correlation between prayer and these positive relationship outcomes. However, remember that correlation does not equal causation. The only way that we could know for sure is to do an experiment where we randomly assign some people into conditions where they pray and some people into conditions where they do not pray. And that really wouldn't be the kind of research we would do, because some people don't pray and we wouldn't make them pray. And some people do pray and we wouldn't make them stop praying. So this is a correlation. Is it possible that there is a third variable causing both prayer and these relationship outcomes? It could certainly be religious beliefs. So if you have certain religious beliefs that cause you to pray for your partner, that could also cause you to have religious beliefs that lead you to be more forgiving, more sacrificial, more committed to. Like, one thing that comes up in the relationship panels, the religion panels when we've been able to have them, is that of all the different faiths that are represented, they would all say that divorce would be considered a last option and would be thought of as being a really serious thing. So perhaps your religious beliefs are causing both the prayer and the relationship outcomes. Another thing to consider here, though, is what about individuals who don't pray, who don't have religious beliefs, or who part of their religious belief doesn't include prayer? So that's a question that I ask in class. If a couple or an individual is not a person who prays, is there something else they could do that would be similar? And students usually kind of struggle, and it's a hard question, but I think the general thought is that you're wanting good for your partner, spending time focused on your partner. So perhaps there could be other things that would at least be similar to praying for your partner. That's an interesting research finding. Another one, I love this, I love the terms that your textbook uses. The Michelangelo phenomenon. Okay, this is the general idea that being in love and being in a committed relationship helps you to grow, at least assuming it's a good and happy relationship. The idea that you help your partner become the best version of himself or herself, and your partner helps you become the best version of yourself. Maybe there's been a time where you never could have accomplished something without somebody's help. And this wouldn't even have to be a romantic partner, maybe a friend or a family member. You say, okay, I never would have gotten through this particular time period. I never would have pursued this job, pursued this opportunity, gone to grad school, whatever. Maybe you can think of examples where someone loved you and believed in you, and that helped you become the best version of yourself. I realize that it sounds very self-helpy, sappy, but I think it's true. Being in a romantic relationship requires you to be forgiving, to be self-sacrificial, to think about other people. And I think it can help you become a better version of yourself. I think that parenting is similar too. Thinking about the sacrifices that you make for your kids and the way that you put them before yourself can help you to become a better version of yourself. Certainly right now, with the coronavirus quarantine situation, it can be a struggle. I adore my children, but they are bored out of their minds and constantly wanting to be entertained. Having said all of that, I'm still enjoying being home with my kids. Okay. All right, what else? Accommodation. This was one of the ones that we mentioned at the end of last lecture as something that happens when you're in a committed relationship. So if a partner hurts you, you're committed to the relationship, you're committed to this partner, they've done something that hurts you, you are more likely to respond well. This is the idea that, okay, you hurt me, but I want to fix this. I want to help you see what hurt me and try to prevent this from happening in the future. I want our relationship to be happy. So you don't necessarily jump to hurting that partner back. You don't necessarily become extremely defensive. Maybe you take a break until you're calm. Maybe, okay, I feel like being mean right now. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to walk away for a few minutes. I'm going to come back and then we can talk about it. If you're not committed and somebody hurts you, there's no reason why you would think calmly and respond helpfully, unless that's just your personality, which, you know what, fantastic. That's good for you. I'm glad. But most people would say, okay, if I'm committed to this relationship, I'll put in the effort to try to turn this conflict into a building process for a relationship to be constructive. But if you're not committed, you might just say, okay, well, this is the time for the relationship to end. You might have been expecting that anyway. So going along with that, self-control is correlated with happier relationships. And if you're in a committed relationship, you'll probably try harder to control yourself. What do you mean control yourself? What do we have to control ourselves from doing? Well, cheating on your partner, telling your partner secrets, spending all the money, whatever. There are tons of things that you might say, well, that would feel really good for me in the moment. But self-control says, no, that's not good for my partner, and that's not good for our relationship long term. So there's a correlation with having self-control and with being satisfied in a relationship. Now the question might be, what if a person says, I just don't have good self-control? Like, I'm the person that spends all the money, eats all the cookies, or whatever. Okay. Then the question is, can you use that as an excuse? I can't help it. I just don't have good self-control. That's a whole conversation I would enjoy having if we were in class. But suffice it to say that there are things you can do to work on your self-control, and that you can have your partner hold you accountable, or have somebody hold you accountable. Certainly, if you can build this up, it will be good for your relationship. And if you care about your relationship, you have to find a way to not do the behaviors that will hurt your partner. Okay, what else can we do to make our relationships happier? Play. Finding fun ways to engage in new, exciting activities together. Okay, normally, in a regular semester, I would put this slide up and I would say, okay, what fun things can you do in Starkville, Mississippi? And normally I get crickets. And people are like, and they'll think, and they'll think, and they'll think, and they'll think, and then somebody will say something. But it's usually hard. And they'll say, oh, well, Starkville's small. There's nothing to do. It's boring. Okay. But now, since we're all locked in our homes, maybe you're saying, walking around Walmart will be so much fun when we can do that again. I can't wait to go to the Dollar Tree, eat inside a restaurant. Okay, so maybe there will be a surge of happiness after the quarantine situation is over, and things that used to seem boring will be fun again. That's at least what I'm promising my kids. I'm thinking, how much more fun will it be to go to Walmart once we haven't gone in a long time, you know? So, what if you're stuck at home right now? Find fun things to do. You know, you can still get outside and enjoy the sunshine, do something active, play a card game, find something fun to do, okay? Couples that have fun together tend to be happier. This could also have to do with misattribution of arousal. Maybe it's what you're doing that's making you feel happy, but your partner's with you, and so you assume that your partner is also making you happy. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Watch something funny together. Laugh. It's a good idea. All right, what else? Forgiveness. I love how your textbook lists forgiveness as a behavior. Certainly, we could have this conversation, and I wish that we could, about whether or not forgiveness is a behavior. Do you choose to forgive? And then if it's not a choice, is it still a behavior? Are there other behaviors that are not choices? Whole conversation that we're missing out on through the online format, but I hope you're thinking about. What we're saying is that there are maybe behaviors that go along with forgiveness, right? Maybe, even if you don't feel like it, you can say, okay, I'm going to stop focusing on this as much. I'm going to stop ruminating on it. I'm going to stop bringing it up every chance I get. Maybe there are behaviors you can choose to engage in that will help forgiveness be easier. So one thing that we find is that when you have been hurt, it is better for your mental health to find a way to forgive. That is not to downplay the hurt. That is not to say that you deserved it or that it's not a big deal. It may be that it was a huge deal to you, but finding a way to forgive your partner, even if you don't stay in the relationship, is good for your mental health. So student counseling services, I'm sure they're doing something. I don't know what they're doing at the moment, but I'm sure they're doing something. There's some telehealth, something going on. And this quarantine will not last forever. I feel fairly confident. Okay. What else? Having an attitude that is content. Okay. I think this is a struggle for us. I think we are a generation that is used to upgrading things. And we're always thinking about the next thing. And it's hard for us to be content with where we are. I think that it just seems to me like single people want to be dating. Dating people want to be engaged. Engaged people want to be married. Married people want to be divorced. Start the process all over again. It's hard for us to ever be happy where we are. So if there was a way that we could be content with our partner, with our relationship, focusing on the good things that we have, right? Positivity, which I know can be hard and comes more naturally to some people than others. But I tend to find that if I've had a nap and a snack, I tend to have a more positive viewpoint. So take care of yourself so that you can have a positive viewpoint. Assurances. We mentioned earlier in the semester about how couples stop holding hands, saying I love you, calling each other pet names and things. They decrease that substantially just in the first year or so of marriage. So making sure that you continue to let your partner know how much you care about them, the little things matter. Sharing tasks. We've talked about how important it is to have an equitable relationship where you feel like the work that you're putting in and the work that your partner is putting in are roughly equal to each other. You need to find a way of doing that for your particular relationship, which may not look like anybody else's relationship, but as long as you and your partner are happy, that's fine. My husband does 95+% of the cooking and the dishwashing around the house, but then I do the other, household things. So finding a way to split the household chores and childcare and finances and whatever else is unique to your situation in a way that feels equitable. Openness. Having an open line of communication where you feel like you can share with your partner without your partner becoming upset, defensive, or sharing what you're saying with another person. Letting your partner know, hey, I don't want other people to know about this. This is just something between us. And then being able to keep your partner's secrets. All those things are important for keeping your relationship happy. Support. You know what? This can be hard because maybe you both need support at the same time. My daughter has a health condition, and she's doing great. She's actually been seizure-free for 4.5 years now. But when she was little, it was right after her first birthday when she started having seizures, and we didn't know, the prognosis wasn't clear, and we didn't really know what was going to happen with her. And my husband and I had to adopt this viewpoint of we can't both fall apart at the same time. So if he's falling apart, I've got to be strong now. And if I'm falling apart, he's got to be strong now. We got to take turns falling apart, right? So supporting each other, even if you're both falling apart, finding a way to support each other, even if it's hard, is so beneficial to relationships. And that doesn't have to be romantic relationships, friendships, family, etc. So what we find is that all of these ways of thinking and behaviors are correlated with happier relationships. So if you engage in these behaviors, that increases your likelihood of being happy. However, it's not enough to just do them once. And this is the thing with the assurances, holding hands, saying I love you. People stop doing those things. Oftentimes we get comfortable, we get lazy, we get busy, life is hard, I understand, and we stop putting effort into our relationship. And then all the things that we did before don't matter anymore because they're not happening right now. So you have to keep doing these things. And that could be all it is. If you go to couples therapy and they help you come up with a plan to take care of each other, to love each other well. It may not even be that you need many sessions. Maybe you just need a couple just to figure out a plan of action. It might not be that much. So finding a way to keep taking care of each other, it has to happen over and over again because these actions are short-lived. Okay, last real topic we're going to talk about, and I've been harping on it all semester. Favorite topic, marital therapy. Okay. Let me get on my soapbox for just a second. You probably heard this rant before. Hang with me. We have a stigma against therapy in general. And I think we have an even stronger stigma towards marital therapy. Okay, why do we have a stigma against therapy? Lots of different potential reasons. One thing might be, and I've heard students say, religious beliefs. It has been put forth by many spiritual leaders that if you have religious beliefs, you should not need therapy. I am a Christian. I have religious beliefs that I hold very near and dear to my heart. I am a huge proponent of therapy, and I take Zoloft. And I don't feel like those two things have to be mutually exclusive. I feel like you can be a psychologist and have faith. I feel like you can have faith and take Zoloft, okay? So, my rant is, health care is health care. If you need to take care of your physical health, you need to take care of your mental health, okay? You can't have my Zoloft, but until you want to talk about having my Zoloft, first you have to give me your Tylenol and your glasses and your dental fillings, okay? If someone had a serious disease and did not seek medical help, then you would say, why? That's ridiculous, okay? If you have a serious mental issue, or any mental issue, it doesn't have to be serious, go talk to somebody. But you didn't go seek help, somebody say, oh, you're so strong. No! It's the strong person that reaches out to get help, because it's not always easy to do, okay? I am a proponent of therapy of all sorts. All the therapy, individual therapy, group therapy, marital therapy, go to therapy. Okay, now, having said that, especially towards marital therapy or couples therapy. It doesn't have to be a married couple, just couples therapy. As soon as you hear so-and-so are going to couples therapy, there is a stereotype that becomes activated. The idea is you think, oh, so-and-so must have cheated. So-and-so must be using drugs. So-and-so must be spending all the money. Like, you start jumping to the assumption that it's something huge. Here's what I would love. What if we heard somebody say that they and their partner, their spouse, whatever, they're going to therapy? What if we said, good for you. I'm so proud of you for being committed to the relationship and wanting to solve problems. That's fantastic. Now, sometimes people don't go to therapy because of the stigma. I get that. It's hard to talk to a stranger about things that you might not feel comfortable talking to your partner about. I get that. There's a vulnerability there. But also, sometimes people don't go to therapy because it's expensive and it's hard to find, a wait list, that kind of thing. I know that no system of counseling is perfect, but I do want to encourage you guys to take advantage of the student counseling services that are free for college students. That's not something you're going to be able to get later in life at other locations. So it's a problem. We need more therapists. We need easier access to therapists. Certainly. Okay. Rant over. There are lots of different ways of doing couples therapy. I'm only going to talk about a couple that are especially common, and that there's a lot of research to support them, but there are tons of different approaches. Let me just say that if you do go to therapy, good for you. I'm all about that. If you do go to therapy, you might want to ask your therapist, counselor, whatever, what is your theoretical orientation? In other words, what do you believe about mental health? Some people have a behavioral approach, some people have a cognitive approach, some people have a psychodynamic approach, which is Freudian, lay on the couch, etc. Okay, a behavioral approach, which I have to be honest, I lean towards. I like cognitive behavioral, we'll talk about that in a second. I tend to lean towards behavioral, okay? A behavioral approach will say that changing your behaviors, which may be difficult, but is certainly possible, can then cause a variety of good outcomes. Now, some people say that's too simple. It's too simple. You start treating your partner nicely, saying kind things, complimenting your partner. Okay, but does that really change the problem? Well, maybe. Maybe if you do enough of a behavior, it will change the way you think about a person. If you treat them kindly and they treat you kindly, that will be enough to change the way you think and the way you feel. So I do think there can be a trickle-down effect from this. So focusing on present interactions. I cannot reward or punish behavior from the past. We can talk about the past as it relates to the present, but focusing on the present interactions, making a list of behaviors we want to increase. Now, not to go into the whole behavior modification spill here, but there's reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement is supposed to make a behavior more likely to occur. Punishment is supposed to make a behavior less likely to occur. There could be issues with using punishment here. One of the partners might feel unfairly treated, or both might, not want to go to therapy. They might feel like now you're giving one partner power over the other partner. So I would suggest focusing more on reinforcing good behaviors. When your partner does something helpful, praising that behavior, finding a way to reward them for that behavior, that kind of thing. Now, what if your partner is doing something bad, but you don't want to punish it? What you do is, one option, is to reinforce an alternative or competing behavior. Okay, so maybe your partner, your partner complains a lot. You could punish your partner whenever he or she complains, but they'll probably resent that. Instead, catch your partner saying something positive, something kind, and praise them for that. And pay attention. You can sort of ignore the complaining, but when they say something kind and thoughtful, then you really reward them for that, okay? And your couples counselor can help you sort this out, okay? You might even have a contract where you make a list of behaviors that you want to work on, and you make a list of reinforcements, rewards you're going to use. That's going to depend on the particular therapist and the particular couple. So you can take an approach that's exclusively behavioral, knowing that changing the way you behave can change the way you think and feel. Also, cognitive behavioral couples therapy. There's a cognitive behavioral therapy for just about everything. CBT, it's very common. Cognitive behavioral therapy often has a lot of good outcomes. The idea is that we're trying to change the way you behave. So just like the things we just talked about. But in addition to that, track and test your thoughts. Sometimes you have a thought that pops up automatically out of the blue, and you can, if you're not paying attention, just automatically accept that as true without stopping to say, okay, is that realistic? Do I have evidence for that? Can I challenge that belief? Okay, so when this thought pops up that my partner always does this, let me stop. Let me think, have there been times where my partner behaved in a positive way? Okay, is there possibly something about this situation that's causing my partner to behave this way? So paying attention to your thoughts, knowing that your behaviors can change your thoughts and your thoughts can change your behaviors, finding a way to focus on both. Okay, now behavioral therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy are probably both going to involve homework, for lack of a better term. Maybe you can think of a better way to phrase this with your clients, but things you need to practice outside of the session. So keeping track of the thoughts that you have and how you're going to try to replace them with more helpful or more accurate thoughts. Keeping track of the behaviors that you're doing or your partner's doing. So that kind of thing is helpful because you can't fix this problem that has probably been there for years because people tend to wait very long before they go to therapy. More on that in a second. You can't fix that in one 50-minute session a week. You're going to need to be working on this at home. Okay, there are other approaches as well. It just depends on what's available in your area, what you would like. Some people might go to a religious leader. Some people might go to like group therapy. There are group couples therapy, lots of different options. Really, the majority of couples therapies have good outcomes. And that's really significant when you think about the fact that people usually wait a long time until the problem behaviors are a pattern that's been going on for years maybe, and the problem's gotten pretty severe. So if you think about the fact that couples are often at a breaking point when they go to therapy, and yet therapy tends to work, imagine how effective therapy would be if people would go sooner, right? Now, the majority of people who seriously undertake them, if you go to therapy and you don't do the homework and you're not honest and you don't talk to your partner, you don't talk to your counselor, it's not going to get better. But if you put in the effort, there is a decent chance, a pretty good chance that things will get better. So because of that, we should change the view on therapy from being, oh, something's wrong, to congratulations, look at you working hard to take care of yourself and your partner. Good job. So I hope that you guys remember that and keep that thought with you. Okay. Therefore, knowing that therapy works, even in severe situations, therapy often makes things better. Why is it that people don't go? All the things we already talked about. The stigma, the cost, the wait list, the general American viewpoint that you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do everything on your own, which I think is so harmful in a lot of situations because we don't seek the help that we need in many different situations. But anyway, I digress. The point is, most couples divorce without ever going to counseling. Here's one thing, okay? I'm just going to throw this out there, okay? Sometimes people suggest that we should make divorce harder to get. We had that whole conversation. I'm going to say, maybe we should make marriage harder to get. Stay with me here. What if we said, in order to get married, every couple needs to go to couples counseling? Now look, first of all, that's never going to happen. Second of all, if that was going to happen, we'd have to have a lot more counselors. But think about it. If we required couples to go through counseling, there may be some couples that wouldn't get married that maybe wouldn't have worked anyway. Or there may be some couples that would have gotten married and divorced because they didn't have the skills they needed to stay married, but now because of the couples counseling, things get better, right? I don't know. That's never going to happen. But just a thought. Maybe we should have a wait list. If you want to get married, you have to apply for a marriage license, and you can't get it until you've gone to a certain number of sessions. I mean, it's never going to happen, but it's a thought. It's just something to consider, okay? Now, the sooner problems are addressed, the easier they are to solve. Most people wait a long time before going to any type of therapy, individual therapy as well. People often suffer from anxiety or depression for years before they reach out. And I find that sad because there are so many different types of therapy that you can find a good match for yourself, pair it with, a medication if you need, and then have a higher quality of life. So if I've done nothing else this semester but reduce the stigma against mental health issues, then I'm satisfied with that. Okay, last thing, activity 12. Remember that you get 2 drop grades for activities. So if you've gotten credit for 10 activities, you don't have to do activity 12. If you still want to, go for it. But if you've missed some activities, here's a chance to earn some points back. What is something, at least one thing, but a few things, hopefully, that you've learned that you can use? Something that you have heard throughout the semester that you can apply. It doesn't even have to be to romantic relationships, but any type of relationship, how to resolve conflict, how to communicate, etc. Okay, that is the end of the class as far as the presentation of material is concerned. I've enjoyed teaching you guys. I miss you guys and hope you're all taking care and doing well. Let me know if you need anything. Remember that exam 4 is going to be happening the week of April 13th. It's going to be open from April 13th at 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. on April 21st. And then after that, I'll post your grade in the class, and you can decide if you want to keep that grade, you're done. If you would like to try to improve your grade, then exam 5 or the final exam will be available. This is for my 9:30 section. It's going to open at 8 a.m. on 4/22, so April 22nd for both sections. For my 9:30 section, it will close at 11 a.m. on April 27th, and for my 2 o'clock section, it will close at 6 p.m. on April 27th. So remember, this schedule is posted for you in Canvas. Let me know if you have any questions, and you guys take care. I hope to have the opportunity to teach you all again in the future.